On August 19th and 20th, the People's Liberation Army (PLA) under the Chinese Communist Party (CCP) carried out military drills in the vicinity of Taiwan. Concurrently, on August 19th, the CPC's official publication, People's Daily, published a post on Weibo titled Dangui, referencing a traditional Chinese herb. The symbolism of the post hints at the notion of Taiwan's reunification with mainland China. In response to the CCP's threats, Taiwan's Foreign Minister Wu Zhaoxian wrote in a tweet, "The #PRC has made it clear it wants to shape #Taiwan's coming national election. Well, it's up to our citizens to decide, not the bully next door. Look, #China should hold its own elections. I'm sure its people would be thrilled. JW." The matter of how both mainland China and Taiwan handled the Taiwan Strait crisis and cross-strait relations remains an unavoidable and controversial topic. Since the establishment of the CCP, every generation of its leadership has aspired to liberate Taiwan. After Xi Jinping came into power, amidst domestic and international challenges, the reclamation of Taiwan was placed high on the agenda. Recent reports suggest that the CCP is intensifying its plans for an invasion of Taiwan. During Xi's leadership over the past decade, the adoption of assertive policies, especially the concept of state move forward, private sector move back, favoring state-owned enterprises over private ones, has posed challenges to consistent economic growth. This was particularly evident during the 3-year pandemic phase, as the CCP's rigorous containment strategies resulted in notable economic setbacks, the shuttering of numerous businesses, escalating unemployment rates, and a pronounced economic recession. As a response to an increasingly challenging domestic landscape, Xi has resorted to tightening internal governance while extending external authority. To shift focus from internal issues, the administration has adopted a wartime regime approach. Consequently, stirring tensions in the Taiwan Strait appears to be the CCP's chosen diversion, marking one of Xi Jinping's most significant strategic moves. Xi often discusses reverting to a domestic economic cycle, echoing Mao Zedong's previous emphasis on preparing for war, preparing for famine, and serving the people. This indicates that foreign investment, supply, or markets are no longer vital. In some sense, this can be termed war economies. This means that under the guise of wartime, the government can forcibly seize and reallocate public and private assets of the entire society, legitimizing their actions in the process. President of the International Strategic Studies Association, Gregory Copley, said,
"Such a war economy would not give China the kind of economic growth it claimed to have had over the past few decades, but it would direct the entire society into survival mode. At present, it is out of control."
Such a war economy wouldn't give China the kind of economic growth it claimed to have had over the past few decades, but it would direct the entire society into survival mode. At present, it's out of control. War economies don't lead directly to sustained economic growth, but are designed to prevent, stave off implosion and defeat in the face of immediate threat. For the Chinese Communist Party across the Taiwan Strait, Taiwan is both a thorn in its side that it wishes to remove and a region it has coveted for its richness. Situated on the western side of the Pacific Ocean in East Asia, Taiwan faces mainland China across the sea. Known for its abundant resources and pleasant climate, Taiwan currently has a population of 23 million. As of 2022, its GDP stands at $761 billion, ranking 21st globally with a per capita GDP of $33,908. The unemployment rate in Taiwan is 3.7% and the inflation rate is 1.9%. As of July 2023, Taiwan's foreign exchange reserves amounted to approximately $567 billion. Taiwan's electronics industry plays a pivotal role in the global economy. A majority of the world's computer electronics components are manufactured in Taiwan. Moreover, Taiwan is home to TSMC, a semiconductor manufacturing giant that leads the global market and is the highest valued company in Asia. Alongside TSMC, Taiwan also boasts numerous renowned multinational corporations. International trade is the lifeblood of Taiwan's economy. Historically, Japan and the United States were its top two trade partners. However, post-2000, they moved to the second and third spots, respectively, with mainland China becoming Taiwan's largest trade partner. The export value to mainland China now exceeds 40% of Taiwan's total exports. Taiwan was reclaimed by the Republic of China under the leadership of Chiang Kai-shek in 1945, following the end of World War II and Japan's occupation. Taiwan's developmental trajectory has been distinctly different from that of mainland China. Present-day Taiwan, having the closest economic ties with mainland China, is also a region with open social freedoms, affluent living standards, and a well-preserved traditional culture among Chinese communities. Having transitioned into a democratic society, Taiwan's societal systems and lifestyle stand in stark contrast to that of mainland China. For the international community led by the United States, Taiwan's geographical location holds significant strategic importance. In recent years, the maritime routes of the Western Pacific see over 80,000 vessels passing annually, serving as the essential passage for Japanese and Korean maritime transport. Given the unpredictable conditions of the Pacific waters, large vessels often navigate through the Taiwan Strait for safety reasons. More than 70% of maritime freight between Japan and Korea passes through this area. Thus, the Taiwan Strait influences the economic prosperity of the East Asian region during peace and directly affects the fate of East Asian nations during conflict. The late Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe once remarked, "An incident in Taiwan is tantamount to an incident in Japan, reflecting the strategic importance of the region." Despite the inherent risks, the appeal of taking Taiwan is significant. Beyond acquiring much-needed talent, technology, and capital, controlling Taiwan provides leverage over the maritime routes of Japan and Korea. This move could help breach the first island chain, cementing dominance in East Asia, a primary reason why Xi Jinping is so determined regardless of the challenges. Ancient Chinese wisdom states, "Man proposes, heaven disposes." The success of an endeavor is influenced by numerous factors, indicating that initiating warfare comes with many risks. Let's first observe international geopolitics concerning the CCP, including significant stakeholders such as Russia and the US. Focusing first on Russia. On May 18, 2023, as the host in Xi'an, Xi Jinping welcomed the leaders and distinguished guests of 5 Central Asian countries. Historically, these Central Asian nations have been considered within Russia's traditional sphere of influence. The CCP's overt reach into what's considered Russia's backyard, especially during the time of the Russo-Ukrainian conflict, could be seen as opportunistic. According to a report by the Al Jazeera network, the CCP's ambassador to the EU, Fu Zong, stated on June 16 that Beijing does not object to Ukraine reclaiming all territories designated in 1991, including Crimea annexed in 2014. Following this, the CCP's foreign ministry expressed hopes to resolve the Crimea issue through political means. These actions indicate that while China and Russia may collaborate, significant differences persist. The inception of the CCP, with support from the Soviet Union's Communist International Far East branch, has historical controversies that are still held by Russians. At critical junctures, could this history be a bargaining chip Putin uses against Xi Jinping? To this, Gregory Copley said, "China, meanwhile, is happy to portray to the world that it has an alliance with Russia, as this gives the appearance that Beijing isn't alone. But this alliance has always been a fiction. At the best of times, there has always been a deep and hidden mutual distrust between Moscow and Beijing, and each believes that the other illegally occupies its lands. Even during the Cold War, Beijing had a deep distrust of and rivalry with the USSR, and before that, Imperial China distrusted the Russian Empire, and Moscow has always distrusted Beijing. While China and Russia collaborate out of mutual needs, their partnership is contingent, a situation aptly described by the idiom sleeping in the same bed but dreaming different dreams." Now turning to the United States. On August 9, 2023, US President Joe Biden signed an executive order prohibiting American investment in Chinese industries that can contribute to sensitive military technologies. This move complements a series of previous US restrictions on key tech exports to China. The US Treasury Department highlighted this order as a highly targeted action, building upon existing export control measures toward China. Previous U.S. trade restrictions focused on limiting American companies from selling sensitive technology and screening Chinese investments in American businesses. The Trump administration had also banned investments in companies linked to the Chinese military. Dr. Li Hengqing, an economist at the U.S. organization Institute for Information and Strategic Studies, commented that the latest ban would severely impact China's investment climate. He stated, "Once the prohibition is in place, many will be deterred due to the significant risks involved. Furthermore, it sets a precedent that developed nations like the G7, EU, Japan, South Korea, and Australia are likely to follow." Additionally, on August 18th, President Biden convened a summit at Camp David with the leaders of Japan and South Korea, aiming to bolster alliance ties in the face of growing threats from China and North Korea. In a rare move, the Japanese and South Korean leaders set aside their disputes for unified action. The CCP criticized the Camp David summit as an attempt to establish a mini NATO in Northeast Asia. In response to the CCP's comprehensive influence efforts in U.S. political, economic, and cultural spheres, sentiments of containment and even confrontation have become mainstream across the U.S. political spectrum. Regardless of the outcome of the upcoming 2024 presidential election, significant policy shifts concerning China are unlikely. Should Trump be re-elected based on his past policies, the U.S. might seek to placate Russia while intensifying a trade war with the CCP. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo had previously emphasized the distinction between the CCP and the Chinese people, suggesting even stricter measures against the CCP might be on the horizon. In Taiwan, since the initiation of direct presidential elections in 1996, there has been a series of political shifts between the blue Kuomintang and green Democratic Progressive Party camps. As the 2024 presidential election approaches, in addition to the traditional blue and green, a rising third-party force has emerged, represented by the white color of the People's Party. In the face of constant threats from the CCP, former Taipei mayor and People's Party chairman and presidential candidate Kuo Wen-je stated, "We must not perceive President Xi Jinping's China as the eternal representation of China. If we truly hold universal values dear, why would one assume that China cannot embrace democracy and freedom? It is incumbent upon us in Taiwan to fulfill our historic duty, ushering China into the global community of civilized nations. Opposition to the Chinese Communist Party doesn't necessarily equate to opposing China as a nation, and expressing dissent towards China doesn't mean being confrontational. It's crucial not to view the entirety of the Chinese populace as adversaries. Ideally, our focus should be narrowed to the Chinese Communist Party, and even more specifically to Xi Jinping. Deeming all 1.4 billion Chinese as adversaries is utterly irrational. It's a foundational strategic principle to have more friends and fewer enemies. If all 1.4 billion Chinese people view Taiwan with admiration and affection, that would be our most substantial defense guarantee." According to recent analyses, the purported alliance between China and Russia may not be as solid as presented. In contrast, the comprehensive sanction by the international community led by the US in areas of economy, technology, finance, strategy, and geopolitics seems both multidimensional and palpable. Let's take a look at China domestically. While the CCP has historically touted its capability to feed 20% of the global population with just 7% of the world's arable land, data suggests a persistent reliance on imported grains to meet its citizens' demands. The National Bureau of Statistics of China reported that in 2022, domestically produced soybeans only accounted for 18% of the total supply, marking a 7-year peak. Energy is another area of concern. China's dependence on international markets, particularly for oil, is considerably high. In stark contrast, Russia, inheriting 76% of the former USSR's territory with only 53% of its population, remains the largest country by landmass. Rich in natural gas, oil, minerals, and agricultural commodities like wheat, Russia, with a population of 143 million, boasts robust resources, making it resilient to sanctions and external pressures. Although China is the world's second largest economy with a comprehensive manufacturing sector, the country remains dependent on many high-end technologies controlled by Western companies. The fundamental strategic resources of food and energy are essential for wartime endurance. History also recalls dictators leveraging wars to fuel nationalist sentiments, divert public attention, and consolidate power. Deng Xiaoping's 1979 campaign against Vietnam, termed by the CCP as the self-defense counterattack against Vietnam, is a case in point. In a short span, the People's Liberation Army captured over 20 significant cities and towns in northern Vietnam, declaring victory within a month and promptly withdrawing. Faced with mounting pressure from the Soviet Union to the north, Deng, recognizing the vulnerabilities of the CCP, strategically chose to engage a familiar, less powerful adversary in a limited conflict. This move not only strengthened his position within the party but also aimed to foster goodwill with the United States. Following this episode, Sino-US relations entered a notably amicable phase. However, Xi Jinping's situation is markedly different. He faces multidimensional pushback from an international community led by the US. Domestically, China grapples with economic downturns and rising public discontent. Passive and indifferent voices within the CCP are increasingly apparent, with factions opposing Xi Jinping simmering beneath the surface, ready to act. A significant part of this opposition is believed to stem from within the Chinese military. In a startling revelation on October 24, 2022, the China Aerospace Studies Institute, CASI, affiliated with the US Air University, not only unveiled the organizational structure of the PLA's rocket force but also detailed its personnel and national deployments. This detailed data suggests that key military targets and personnel within the CCP are well within the US military's reach, making them prime objects in the event of a conflict. The CCP believes such detailed intelligence could only have come from high-level leaks, not from rank-and-file members. Mainland Chinese media has reported that on July 31st this year, Xi Jinping elevated Wang Huobin to the position of commander of the rocket force, and Xu Xisheng was promoted to political commissar of the rocket force. Commenting on these changes, former PLA Navy Lieutenant Yao Cheng stated, "Wang's role in the rocket force isn't for restructuring. He's adjusting its operational plans and troop deployments. She urgently needs to restore the combat capability of the rocket force for potential action against Taiwan." Yao further elaborated on the situation that arose last October when the U.S. Air Force University's CASI released a 250-page document detailing the rocket force's internal structure. Yao claims a former colleague informed him that prior rocket force commander Li Yuchao was taken away during a meeting on June 26. Rumors suggest his son, based in the US, may have been involved in leaks. Following this, on July 1st, the Chinese Communist Party implemented an anti-espionage law, with CCP's Legal Committee Secretary, Chen Wenqing, emphasizing the need to strengthen the hidden front. On July 29th, renowned mainland journalist and columnist Gao Yu shared on her Twitter that the previous deputy commander of the rocket force, Wu Guohua, passed away on July 4th. When retired Major General Zhang Xiaoyang, a former superior of Wu, visited to pay his respects on July 23rd, he found very few attendees due to the recent troubles at the top of the rocket force. Further information confirms that many senior members of the rocket force, including former commander Liu Chao, political commissar Xu Zhongbo, deputy commander Liu Guangbin, and previous commander Zhang Zhenzhong, have all been purged. The restructuring of the military, which began in 2015, aimed to consolidate Xi's control over the armed forces. Despite the rocket force being a new military branch directly established by this reform, ostensibly loyal to Xi, current events indicate the presence of leaks, betrayals, and various disruptions. This suggests that Xi hasn't truly solidified his control over the military, with various factions possibly seeking ways to protect themselves or even help in the potential dismantling of the CCP as a bargaining chip for protection and amnesty. Such internal dynamics highlight the existential crisis of the CCP amidst increasing external pressures. Gregory Copley, an American strategic expert, wrote in his book The Art of Victory, "If you don't know where you are going, every road will lead to disaster." Regrettably, Xi Jinping seems to be accelerating down this precarious path with an increasingly fragile communist China.